Many thanks to DayZ Podcast, Pandemonium, Lion Loss and Wolves of DayZ for making this video possible. The hidden world of DayZ hitboxes goes far deeper than you can possibly imagine, so in this video we're going to break down the differences between the male and the female hitboxes, how much damage each body part takes, including how to protect our insta-death brain hitbox, and expose a flaw with hitboxes that easily allows us to boost our damage output against animals and players, teaching us not only where to shoot for maximum damage, but also which parts of our characters we need to guard the most. Upon DayZ's official release after 5 years of early access in 2018, 15 hitboxes were generously given to our characters, of which 11 remain evident. The ones that seem to be removed are the heart, lungs, liver and spine because they no longer take damage, making the brain hitbox the only hitbox that is hidden inside of our characters. Of these 11, left and right versions of the arms, hands, legs and feet are mostly the same, so this means that there are 7 hitboxes that can potentially take health, blood, shock and bone damage. These 7 consist of the head, brain, torso, arms, hands, legs and feet, but there is another hidden hitbox which we'll just call the collision hitbox. The collision hitbox determines the size of our characters in the world to determine whether or not we can go through a wall or a doorway that's closed or open, and the reason I'm mentioning it is because I believe it's a hitbox that determines damage from vehicles or while we drive vehicles and crash them. Whatever the case, because this hitbox doesn't take damage from weapons, we're going to ignore it for the rest of this video, and we're also going to ignore the model of our characters too, because it's a lot like the Rings of Power series on Amazon. It looks good, but it doesn't have any substance to it. Basically, the model is only there to please our eyes because the hitbox that does all the damage and the damage calculations is very much PlayStation 1, which is why the male and the female hitboxes are exactly the same. They use different models, but they use the exact same hitbox. As shown here, the female model is smaller than the hitbox it uses, and that's why you can hit the side of the hitbox of the female, even though you can't do that to the male. The male hitbox and the male character model fit better together. On both the male and female model, the torso starts from the neckline here, which means that this guy is perfectly capable of taking a 5.56 through the neck, and then it goes to the end of the underclothing here on both arms on the male model, and it extends all the way down to the underclothing limits again on the legs, making the torso a monster of a hitbox. Showing the hand and feet hitboxes here, you can guess the rest of the body parts yourself, but the brain hitbox is hidden inside of our character's head, which segues us onto the very complex world of hitbox damage transfer. Each of the 7 hitboxes transfer damage at different rates to your health, which is the icon down here that starts at 100 when you spawn into the game. Now because the torso hitbox takes damage at a rate of 1:1, 20 damage applied to your torso translates to 20 damage applied to your health down here, meaning you have 80 health left, which is also the case for shock damage, a rate of 1:1. 20 shock is 20 shock. However, when shooting somebody in the arm, only 10% of the damage inflicted to the arm gets transferred to your health down here, basically meaning that the arm can take 10 times the damage your torso can before draining your health to 0. So when shooting for the torso, that's 5 shots to kill a player, but when shooting for the arms, that's 50 shots to kill somebody. That's a massive difference. Shock damage is applied differently to arms though. Instead of the 10% like health damage, it's 33% the rate. So 4 to KO somebody in the chest if you want to go for shock damage, but 12 shots to KO somebody if you're hitting them in the arm, because only 33% of damage is being transferred to your shock damage. For hands, the global health rate is the same, just 10%, but it's also 10% for shock damage instead, making it the worst body part to inflict damage to in DayZ. The second best part of the body to damage though is the head, because it transfers damage at twice the rate, so 20 damage to the face means 40 damage to this global health down here, which is then tripled when it comes to shock, so 20 shock damage applied to the head gets converted into 60 shock damage. However, this only applies to firearms because when it comes to player or infected using melee against the player's head, it transfers damage at the same rate that the torso does, with this applying to both health and shock damage. This means that hitting a player in the head with melee is completely and utterly pointless for health and shock damage. Melee also isn't capable of penetrating the head and hitting the best hitbox in DayZ to attack, and that is the brain hitbox. The reason it's the best to attack is because any damage at all to this hitbox will instantly kill the player. Even if it's 0.00001 damage, you will die if your hitbox for the brain takes damage. So only firearms that can penetrate the meaty surface of your head hitbox to hit your brain hitbox buried within will do this, and this means that low penetration rubber shells will not penetrate your head hitbox to hit your brain hitbox, which is shaped like this within, but all of the other ammo types in DayZ can easily penetrate the head hitbox. Now there are two methods to hide your brain hitbox from players entirely to prevent somebody from one-shotting you very easily, and the first method is to become a flat earther, because as we all know, flat earthers don't have a brain. But the more serious second method is to wear a helmet. When you wear any helmet in DayZ that has an armor stat assigned to it, which is pretty much every single military helmet, it is impossible for players to hit your brain hitbox, because your brain hitbox just does not exist when this armor stat is on a helmet. As long as the helmet is not ruined, and as long as you're wearing the helmet, your brain hitbox doesn't exist, which is a whole other video which I've got planned for the future. For now, let's move on to the legs hitbox. Health damage applied to the legs gets transferred at a rate of 30%, and shock damage is 33%, so you can KO someone at the same speed with arm shots as you can leg shots, but you can kill someone faster by shooting them in the legs compared to the arms. This is also the same case with the feet hitbox, more damage than hitting the hands, 12% health damage, but 10% shock damage transfer. All hitboxes take damage independently of each other. They just simply transfer damage onto your health and onto your shock damage, so it is possible to trick the hitbox engine to hit two of your hitboxes with one bullet and send two signals off to these stats, boosting damage output because the damage engine calculates two separate attacks from one bullet. However, because the damage a bullet does is strongly determined by its current speed, this may not always be worth doing, such as shooting through the arm of a player to hit their chest. It does less damage than shooting the torso itself. This is because the bullet fired gets slowed down in the player's arm, and it does less damage as a result, because a slower bullet does less damage. To reduce this effect, shoot through the thinnest part of the arm to maintain bullet speed and therefore bullet damage when it does hit the torso. The damage to the arm isn't determined by how central the shot is. This is applied to all body parts in DayZ. Glancing attacks versus central attacks make absolutely no difference. Whether or not the bullet came into contact with the hitbox is all that hitboxes care about. For example, looking at this scenario, you may believe that shooting for the head of this player will result in the fastest time to kill, but due to the brain and the head hitbox being greatly protected by the helmet, going for the glancing attack through the torso hitbox onto the leg hitbox kills fastest. In just one bullet, this person will die. However, if you go for the torso, it requires 2 bullets, and if you go for the headshot, again, it will require 2 bullets. This applies to animals too. The leg hitbox slightly overlaps onto the torso hitbox, allowing you to hit both of these hitbox and kill the animal faster than going for a headshot. Be aware though that the further you are away from your target, the more time your bullet gets to slow down while it's in flight, and the slower bullet, like I said, does less damage, which means that high damage, high penetration weapons are best for exploiting this method, of which here are the best in DayZ. Now obviously this double penetration method is taking advantage of how hitboxes work in DayZ, so I'd like to get your feedback on whether you think this is a good or bad thing for the game, because while it does increase the skill ceiling needed to find the best ways to kill players as fast as possible, it does it in a bit of a cheesy way. Nonetheless, we've learned a great deal about how hitboxes work in DayZ and where not to shoot players. Don't shoot them in the arms, don't shoot them in the hands. These parts of the body can tank so much damage. Go for the torso and go for the head and go for that double penetration if you think you're pro. And this wouldn't have been possible without DayZ, who created this hitbox mod just for this video. He created a mod for this video, and to Raxto also for the wireframe images that you've seen throughout this video. Raxto was a massive help, so huge thanks to those guys. Thank you to you as well for watching this video, and have a good day.